Going live now. All right. All right, guys. Welcome in. My name is Steve Pintado. I am the host of the Fantasy Coaches podcast and a member of Unwrapped Sports Network as well. Coming here again to you with today some fun things. If you haven't watched my first episode yesterday, we are doing a 32-day, 32-team fantasy football quick analysis, 15, 20 minutes tops. Today may be one of the shorter days, but yesterday I did the Washington football team. A lot of people seem to enjoy it. I gave some quick, easy tips on some of these players that I've noticed and some where you could project some of these guys to go this coming season. Just little quick bits, something quick and easy you can look at and hear and listen to and just kind of get an idea where some of these players are kind of going and why I may or not like some of these players. We may talk a little dynasty, we may talk a little deeper man leagues, we may get into a bunch of little things. But again, yesterday was the Washington football team. Today is the Tennessee Titans. Day 2 now, coming a little late, like I said, but I'm here to talk about the Titans. And we're going to start with the quarterback position, as always. And it's Ryan Tannehill, guys. Ryan Tannehill is a pretty solid, suitable quarterback. Hey, Robbie J, thanks for joining. If you hear me shout out some people's name via Twitter or YouTube, I am on also Sportscaster, people are joining that way as well. So, and vice versa, guys. So, in terms of Ryan Tannehill, as a Dolphins fan, I've known him for years. He's been a servable quarterback who's just an overall nice guy to be around. And, he finally got on and moved to a different team. He went to the Titans. He really needed to change the scenery after being with Miami for almost, 5 or 6 years, I think it was at this point. And again, him as a quarterback in Miami was never great. He had one finish that was a top 15 over his career. So again, Miami's offenses weren't the best. So he goes to Tennessee last year. And what happens in Tennessee? Mariota sinks the bed at some point. Ryan Tannehill goes in and things just click. When he got in after, I believe it was week 7, he was quarterback 3 the rest of the season. He was averaging over, big fantasy numbers, averaging 29 fantasy points during the fantasy playoffs. He saw 20 plus fantasy points in 7 of his 8 final games. He has an insane efficiency too. He had a touchdown every 13 attempts. He was on fire, and he was just on another level here. And again, many would think he is coming into his new season. What could this mean overall for him? What does the outlook mean? We saw such an efficient quarterback. How would you not want to draft this guy again? Why is he being targeted more and more? And the biggest thing for this is, like I said, Tannehill has never been a guy who was a top-tier fantasy quarterback. He's been a pretty solid guy. He has a rushing floor to his game. Again, he's a little older now, but he's still a pretty solid rushing floor to his game. He had 4 rushing touchdowns last year. But the biggest thing for me is that I think he may come down, and people may be a little shocked on this, is that, he had 2,700 yards last season. 1,500 of that means 1,500 of it came in air completed yards. So it means 1,300 of his yards were after the catch, and it definitely had to do with A.J. Brown a lot of the time taking this ball to the house constantly. And my concern is that I think people and defenders, and we'll talk about A.J. Brown when we get there, is that people are going to lock on A.J. Brown at some point, and it's going to limit Tannehill. Yes, he's got Jonas Smith again, another guy who you catch the ball short and he can take it to the house if he needs to. Derrick Henry, same concept. He's got a lot of guys that can do that, but I just don't think that efficiency holds up for an entire season. Thank you, Rob J. I appreciate the tip. And that is my biggest nick on Tannehill, is that I just don't see him being an efficient quarterback. He had 7 QB1 finishes. Again, he doesn't have a pretty solid season. I think he'd be a top 17 fantasy quarterback, maybe top 15. I don't think he's a quarterback 1 this year for the amount of quarterbacks that there are in the league. And again, don't take him for what he did last year. Take him because what he's able to do with a pretty good offense around him. He's got an offense that's going to be a run first, and he's going to be efficient with his passes. And you want somebody who's going to maybe be a solid floor guy. I think Tannehill can be a solid floor guy, but don't expect him to be averaging like he did in the playoffs, 29 fantasy points, even during the regular season, like 20, 25 constantly. He's not going to do that on a consistent basis. But if you want someone who, can get you 17, 18 points most weeks, I think Ryan Tannehill is an okay option at that point. Definitely around 11 to 12, 13 kind of pick there. I think he's worthy of a spot. Definitely a real attractive super flex option for number 2. two quarterback there, even a one quarterback. I wouldn't mind taking him. Again, there's other guys who I think more upside than Tannehill, and that's my biggest niche. Again, on Tannehill, his upside just isn't there, but he's a servable quarterback who will be a pretty decent option week in and week out, but just don't expect the efficiency that you saw in 2019 because it's just not going to be there. Going over to the running backs, and the running backs have been a lot of fun to talk about over the time frame with fantasy coaches, and it's Derrick Henry to start off. And again, we just know Derrick Henry just made that big contract extension, 4 years. Congratulations to him. It's hard as a running back to see, big talk. And we all know last year, if you ever listen to fantasy coaches, I was definitely not a big fan of Derrick Henry. And, I just thought last year was a fluke and it just wasn't going to happen. And I ate my words. Not going to lie, I ate my words, and I can admit that. Going into this year, I definitely have a little bit more of a, overall broad outlook on him now. Because when you look at Derrick Henry, his biggest ability is that he's able to run the ball. He's probably going to see 300 carries this season. There's no doubt about that. 300 carries more than likely. And he's going to see big touchdown upside if they get the red zone consistently. His passing volume isn't really there. 25 receptions. Hasn't been a big passing down guy, but when he does get, one of those passes out of the backfield on a screen or anything, he could take the house at any time. And that's what a good thing is about that. But again, the offensive line lost one of their best tackles in Conklin. They have some issues on the offensive line. I believe one of them is out on COVID right now. So they're going to be building with a little bit of shakier offensive line. And again, defenders are going to continue to look at Derrick Henry as a main feature on this team here. They're going to try to contain him as best they can. They know they're not going to, but they're going to attempt to do it. And with him, last year and what he's able to do, he was a top 15 RB in the first 6 games prior to Ryan Tannehill. And I think you could see a little bit more of an efficient, maybe a top 12, top 10 running back most weeks, I think, overall. But you're not going to see I don't think you're going to see on a consistent basis what he was able to do at the end of the season. I mean, he was on fire. I mean, he just took over the league. I mean, he was RB3 the rest of the season from week 8 basically to week 16. I mean, his lowest rushing was 63 yards. He had 3 games over 140 yards last year. He averaged a touchdown every 18 attempts. And he had a couple rushing touchdowns and receiving touchdowns as well. And I believe that if you're going to grab him, I think he is still valuable in the round 1 or 2 scenario right now because what he's able to do in the run game. Again, a little less of an attractive option in PPR leagues because I believe there are some running backs that can get a big reception volume that Derrick Henry won't see this coming season. But back end of round 1, probably round 2 scenario, I think you're getting a great position for a guy like Derrick Henry. If you have like the 10th, 12th, 11th pick, and Derrick Henry slips a little bit there, which I think he could, I think he's a guy you could definitely go and take because he's going to see 300 carries. And when it comes to running backs, our biggest hit right now with the running back scenario is that carries. Not a lot of running backs will see a lot of carries nowadays. And Derrick Henry is one of the few guys that are in this league right now who's probably going to see 270 plus. Hey, crowd pleaser, thanks for joining. And that's what you're going to get with Derrick Henry. I think he's a better late round value pick. Late round value means late round value round 1, not late rounds, but round 1, then going in those middle early rounds because you can get, Dalvin Cook is still, we'll get to Dalvin Cook in Minnesota eventually, but Derrick Henry, he's a better spot to go there. And I think if you go in the late round 1, early round 2 to get him, he's probably not going to be there, but if he is, I think he's a safe bet to go there because he's going to see big carries and he's going to have those touchdown upsides. So, Darrington Evans, a guy who I really liked coming out of college. He did a little bit of everything, a little bit of receiving work to his game there. He's very explosive. He's basically the opposite of Derrick Henry. And he's not going to be bulldozing you over like Derrick Henry is. He's going to wiggle, make defenders miss, has that home run threat to his game. And I'd like to see what he's able to do because if you saw last year from 2018 to 2019, Dion Lewis got used less. And it was Derrick Henry show fully. And they just signed him for a 4-year deal. They want to try to keep him probably fresh for the next 4 years. Darrington Evans, maybe he doesn't do it in the early on in the season, but mid to late season, he could have some fantasy value that he could kind of produce. And I think if they just need more weapons on this offense, I don't think they have enough going on. And you get Darrington Evans in there to do a little, lightning and thunder kind of with Henry. Evans could, make some fantasy noise late in the season. Definitely again, maybe before this whole preseason thing not happening, I would have had Evans as maybe a late round pick. But if you want to take him late, you could and see what happens with him. I just don't see him being a guy who sticks in your team after week 1 or week 2 after he doesn't get a lot of opportunity. Probably a better mid-season pickup than actual draft position here. That's how I kind of view Darrynton Evans. In Dynasty, I love him. I love to grab him anywhere. Definitely in round 3 right now he's going in his rookie drafts. Definitely love to grab and see what he's able to do, even though Derrick Henry's there going to probably use for the next 4 years. But I think this kid has a lot of talent to his game. So Darrynton Evans, late round undrafted guy with a mid-season pickup to him. Next one are the wide receivers here, and I'm going to start from the worst to the best. Again, there's a couple guys out there that I could mention. Just no one's really seen a big step up, especially with this off preseason. But some guys who we know that's on the team. That's Adam Humphries. Adam Humphries signed a 4-year deal with the Tennessee Titans last offseason after the Patriots made an offer to bring him in, and he decided to go to the Titans, even with the less money going to the Titans. And Humphries, we've seen him have that 2018 breakout season. Didn't do it this year. He kind of, unfortunately, basically got hurt most of the year. Really didn't help at all. And that didn't help his fantasy value. And right now, he's someone who's probably going to see an undrafted sticker. He was averaging 4.5 targets per game and just 3.3 when Ryan Tannehill became the starter. Ryan Tannehill, did thrive on the slot role back in Tennessee and Miami. So maybe there is some, work there, but I don't know how much of a effort that's going to see with, AJ Brown coming in and out slot times, just the way he's presenting himself. I just don't see it being a big thing. But near the end of the season, he did start playing again, got hurt and came back, and he only only played less than 40% of the snaps just once after that. And maybe he has some value moving forward, and they have to really bring him back into things, and they really do things differently here. The slot role is not a big feature constantly, so there is some issues with that. He's definitely being on one of the top waiver wire pickups once all the drafts are done, but maybe he gets a little bit more involved in this offense this year. But Adam Humphries, if you see his name late in your drafts, just leave him on draft and let them see what he's able to do during the season before you go pick a guy like that and waste a bench spot. There's better guys with upside. He's definitely not an upside guy you're looking for. Corey Davis. As we all know, Corey Davis is on the pump list right now to injury, and we all know Corey Davis. He's the year after Devontae Parker scenario. Tremendous receiver, tremendous talent. We're waiting for him to just break out. Some flashes of him going nuts. And this is his final season now in Tennessee. And he only produced 2 games last year. It's over 10 fantasy points. He dealt with injuries on and off during their Tennessee run. He didn't surpass the 60-yard mark after week 7. So there are some concerns about, Corey Davis this year. What are we doing with Corey Davis? You've heard the team say he's their number 1 wide receiver. He has been, but, he only had 3 red zone attempts this past season. Not a big red zone guy. But he's got terrific size, good catchability to his game, but the excuses starting to come down on him. He could say it's been bad quarterback play, but Ryan Tannehill is at least an efficient quarterback. But he didn't really show that when there was that big Tennessee run. And now you have A.J. Brown playing a big share now, Derrick Henry running the ball, and Jonas Smith looking to go up. So does Corey Davis have that appeal still? You're not in round 8 or 9 like he was the last couple of seasons now. He's probably around 14, 15, 16 that I'm willing to target because the ball can't just go to A.J. Brown constantly. It's just not going to happen. And someone else has to get involved. Perry, what's going on, buddy? I will be picking shortly. I'm almost done. And Corey Davis is clip on what's going on. Corey Davis isn't somebody that you want to pick early anymore. He's definitely a later round guy, but he's got value there because he has that potential still. And I think a lot of people are going to be on this whole, Devontae Parker did it. Yeah, but Devontae Parker was almost an undrafted guy doing it. So you have to take that in perspective when you're looking at Corey Davis, that if you can get him in your 15th, 16th round, undrafted, that's where you want to take the Corey Davis value. Because at that point, you're just taking a late round filter flyer on a guy who has big upside in his game that could maybe end up being a wide receiver 2 or 3 by the end of the year if he sees enough opportunity and can stay healthy. And that's what you're getting with Corey Davis right now. So, and going over to A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, what a rookie season this guy had. I was a big fan coming out of him when he was coming out of college. Then he went to the Titans. I was like, I don't really like the landing spot. I thought it was going to be a rough spot for him. But the quarterback play, early on he was averaging 6.6 fantasy points per game. It wasn't looking good. Again, he was a rookie, so it takes time. Then Ryan Tannehill comes in. And man, this guy goes up averaging 14 fantasy points a game. He was a top 5 receiver during that time the rest of the year. Big playability, had 6+ 40-yard catches last year. Man, this kid was electric, man. Just doing crazy amount of things, running with the ball, just short passes, and just taking him to the house. I mean, what can you do right? The biggest thing for me was targets last year, and targets were such an inconsistent factor last year. I just didn't like it, and that's something that I want to see more going into this year. I know people are buying into that, and, if it was on the Kansas City Chiefs and you say A.J. Brown was their wide receiver one, I'd say he's a top 2 round guy. But it's Ryan Tannehill, again, we're still speaking of. And we don't know. I know he's on the team for the next couple of years. And just this season alone, I don't think Tannehill's going to see that same efficiency you saw, like I mentioned before. So I don't believe A.J. Brown's going to see that same efficiency you saw before. I mean, he averaged, 5.5 targets on the season, just up and down too much. He had 8 games under 5 targets per game. I mean, it just was too much sometimes. Yes, his big playability helped him out a lot. I just don't know if it's going to consistently do that year in, year out. And at least this coming year, he might be able to bounce back and have a better, more efficiency to his game. 52 receptions over 1,000 yards. That's pretty good, you could say, for a rookie. And then he had 8 touchdowns. And one thing I've noticed about rookie wide receivers who have 8 touchdowns or more, and Darius Slayton, we'll talk about him when we get there. Michael Thomas did this. A couple other guys in their career have done this. You see them regress in the touchdown category. They go from having a high touchdown output the rookie year, and they regress the second year. And it's been like that over the last 6 or 7 years now. We've seen a rookie wide receiver put up big reception touchdowns and regress. It happens every year. I know he's the wide receiver one, but again, there's some regression coming from, A.J. Brown this year that you're going to have to take into effect, though. To me, he's a better round 5, round 6 guy. I wouldn't want to take him too early. I know people having him in round 3 possibly going. I just think that's way too early for you getting a good value for him. I'd rather let him just go and get Terry McLaurin than in the 6th round if that's the case. I think it's the same value there. But if A.J. Brown falls to round 5, maybe end of round 4 if you want to get a little lucky there. But round 5, round 6, A.J. Brown, I mean, I think he's just a better overall option to go right there. And I like his ability. Again, I see some regression coming in his game a little bit. He needs to be more efficient with his targets, and I think the touchdowns will come down, but he could see more yards this coming year. But just don't go out there and grab him in the round 3 like, he's going to be a wide receiver 1 this year. I just don't see it happening. I see him, taking a little bit of regression, but has a bright future ahead for this kid. So, and going on to my last one, I didn't think this was going to take me all 20 minutes, but it did. Jonnu Smith. The tight end of the Tennessee Titans here, and I guess just because there's a lot of talk about a lot of fantasy relevant guys on like the Washington football team. So Jonnu Smith, wow, this is a guy I'm really high on this year. After a really decent fantasy year last year, he's going to his year 4 right now, and he was tight end 12 the rest of the way Ryan Tannehill got in the game, and he didn't go crazy on fire, but he had 4 really good games during that span there. 4 games over 8 fantasy points, which again, for a tight end isn't that bad, but this kid's explosive. I mean, Bill Belichick talked about him being one of the better tight ends in this league right now, but you give him the ball 5 yards up the field with an open space a little bit, he can beat out defenders. He can beat out cornerbacks and, safeties out there in the foot race. He can do it. And that's something that, you saw from him last year in multiple games, and it's something that if he saw more targets this coming year and be a little bit more involved in the offense, what could he do? And I think you're going to see that this coming season because someone else has to catch the ball out of the back, and it can't be A.J. Brown constantly. And you need to find someone else that take the pressure off A.J. Brown. Again, we talked about Corey Davis, but Jonnu Smith is a guy I think could see a big bump, could see somewhere between 60 and 70 targets after 45 this year. And he could see more of the touchdown upside this coming season here with his big body ability and his big athletic frame. And you're going to get this guy probably around, and I have him around 13, 12. I think that's a good value, but he's been going in around 14, 15. This is a guy you could just wait on the tight end position, grab Jonnu Smith in those later rounds. Don't risk it. Go get your starters. in the other position, so get your depth in that position and get Jonnu Smith in round 13 and call it a day. Jonnu Smith is a tremendous athlete, and Ryan Tannehill has used tight ends over his career, and I could see them using him a lot this year to be that second or third target in that offense. So Jonnu Smith is the guy on the rise, big sleeper potential, possible outright potential in this game. So Jonnu Smith is I'm a big fan of his possibility of making that next level in his year 4. So, but that's the end for the Tennessee Titans, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. I do enjoy doing this on a week-to-week basis. Today, right now in August, I'll be doing this the next 30 more days to go. Tomorrow will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tune in tomorrow if you want to hear more about them. A lot to talk about, a lot of things going on there. So that's going to be a lot of fun. If you also, as always, guys, go check out Unwrapped Sports Network. They're doing a tremendous amount of great things over there, especially on Sportscaster. You got to check it out. As far as the fantasy coaches, check in Tuesday morning. We'll be having our next, running back ranking episode. On Thursday, we'll be doing another running back ranking episode. We got a lot of cool guests coming on this week. 2 really fun guys are going to be on soon. So look forward to that, guys. So appreciate you guys for listening, and tune in until next time. Take care, guys.